So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new Media and American League Baseball, capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Okay, something's wrong with this picture. I'm Mr. Media. I do the interviewing, right? Got it? Okay, somehow I've booked an interview with LPGA Golf Hall of Famer Amy Alcott, which is all well and good, but to talk to her about her new book, Leaderboard. But it turns out the book is a collection of interviews she conducted. I don't know. I mean, has the whole world gone crazy? On the other hand, this could be my lucky break. I don't know a damn thing about golf, so maybe it's a good thing. Maybe we can talk about something I do know something about. Thank goodness I don't have to talk about birdies and bogeys, about which I know nothing. And in case you're wondering, Amy has been waiting in a hermetically sealed, soundproof room where she couldn't hear a word of this introduction. So let's bring her on now. Amy Alcott, welcome to Mr. Media.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing terrific. But I must tell you, you know a heck of a lot more about birdies and bogeys than you think you do.
I do, huh?
Yeah, I think you do.
How do you figure?
You have to kind of, after you get into the book, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I claim total ignorance when it comes to the sport of golf. I don't even pretend. If I'm with friends who play, I don't even pretend. I just say I don't get it. But it's okay.
Yeah. No, it's a game that kind of possesses you. So once you do get started, you're going to be hooked.
Yeah, that's what I'm fearing. But that I kind of applied that energy to when my daughter decided to start playing soccer years ago. That was the sport I took up that I had no knowledge of. So that's the one that's eaten up all that energy. But what I have to ask, what made you decide to publish a collection of interviews with celebrities and golfers rather than an autobiography or even a travelogue from your playing days?
Well, I thought there's a definite autobiography. I think everybody can write an autobiography. Everybody has a book inside of them. And that's what Bill Clinton told me, because he's one of the interviews in the book, and he actually, President Clinton, encouraged me to just go ahead and write a book that I felt I wanted to write. I had played golf with him several times, and so that's why he's part of the book in one of the vignettes. But I thought that, when you're a professional golfer, a professional athlete, the world kind of revolves around you. When you want to practice, when you want to eat, when you want to sleep, when you want to talk, when you want to, everything is about you. And I thought it was time to maybe do an interview and kind of get out of Amy and not have to talk about myself and when I started playing and, how I grew up playing and how many tournaments a year I play, and just kind of get into the thing about what possesses people to take up this crazy game and why they've played it. So it was just kind of a personal venture in a way.
But, I mean, honestly, aren't you worried that now that you've once again blazed a new path for women golfers that we're going to be subjected to Annika Sörenstam interviewing the Jonas Brothers in Hannah, Montana, stuff like that?
Well, I don't know. There's always a beginning of things. But I've always been, I think, just interested in so many things beyond golf. I think that's, in a way, what's maybe separated me from other players. Not that, they don't have other interests, but, when I was playing the tour full time, I just couldn't sit and talk about golf all the time. I mean, sometimes if you mention one thing or another, nobody knew what you were talking about, but I like to have considered myself pretty well read, and, people that complain that they're not, interested are really not, are not interesting. So I've always just been interested in a lot of things, and so this is just kind of a way for me to express myself, so to speak.
Were you always well-rounded? I mean, when you were starting out, I'm going to guess you were probably more focused on your game and and your goal than to be, so interested in so many things? Or were you always that way?
Well, golf, you have to have micro focus. You have to be great at something. You could go to anybody in any sport and they'll tell you at the height of their career they kind of eat, breathe, and sleep it. It's just the way, it's what, it demands of you, is you have to be totally immersed in it. And it's not that I always had other interests. They joke, some players called me Hollywood because I lived in Los Angeles. I'm still one of the only pro golfers that live in Los Angeles, and would run into, a whole cadre of interesting characters at country clubs, and many of them are in the book. And, I've always had things that interest me beyond just hitting a golf ball, even though maybe I couldn't express it. But I guess I like to think I'm far more than just a golfer, a professional golfer, or even a Hall of Famer in my sport. So that's why I kind of took this sidetrack to kind of getting into being an author.
Which Amy Alcott would be the most interesting to talk to? The one who, when she was playing golf at the height of her career in golf, or the Amy Alcott that I'm talking to now? Who do you think that I'd find more interesting to talk to?
That's a tough one. I guess I'm always asked a lot of questions because I have always seeked a lot of knowledge. I think just the Amy that kind of comes from a more philosophical place. I don't know which one that is, but there's probably a few of me. There's always somebody kind of. I think I'm definitely can be simple, but it's just because of my interest in knowing a lot about a lot of things, and I think that's what I take away from being a professional athlete. It's, when you're winning a U.S. Open or whatever, you're in the moment, but it's far more beyond that. A 34-year golf career is all about, the people you meet, the places you go, and, the special things that you garner besides, trophies and checks. So that's the part of me I think that's the most interesting, is the inquisitive one.
Now, your book takes us into the lives of everyone from golfers Kerry Webb and Ben Crenshaw to actor Jack Nicholson, and you mentioned, of course, Wild Bill Clinton from Arkansas. How did you choose the subjects in the book? Well,
I actually did about 37 interviews, of which 27 are in the book. There were other people that after I did the book, I think the thing that I felt the most is, why didn't I do this person, and why didn't I do that person? Or I did some people that maybe didn't make the cut, so to speak, in the book. But many of them are people that I just found interesting and wanted to either get to know for one reason or another, or I already knew them. And Kenny G is a good friend of mine, and we've played a lot of golf. But I didn't want it to be a book just about pro golfers and why they play golf. To me, that would be really boring. Everybody knows that plays the game about how crazy the game is and the challenge from, you can read a lot of books about professional golfers. I wanted it just to be around about kind of a real mix of people and why they've played golf and how it's kind of intersected with their life.
And I mean, that was the thing that I found interesting. I was kind of surprised because I was expecting, I was expecting a book that was more golf centric, but it's really about people. I mean, the golf is really a tool to get at who they are and what I mean. Obviously, their connection to golf, and I thought it was interesting. Bill Clinton talking about Hillary and her she used to play golf once a year, and it was also interesting to me to read him talking to you about how his golf game changed, and of course his life changed after heart surgery. I mean, you've given it a more personal spin than just talking about birdies and bogeys,
Well, I like to kind of think that I learned something, from the book, and definitely that about, the former president. He became a better golfer, I think, when he was out of office. The time I played with him, it's like, I said, Mr. President, I said, you should really sign up for the senior tour. I mean, 'cause every time I see you now, you're bringing out your A game. And he says, well, I'm just a lot more relaxed now that I'm not in the White House. So I think he was able to enjoy the game more. I did enjoy, the interview I did with this well-known and very famous composer, John Williams, is in the book. He's a member at my club in Los Angeles, and we take these what's called walks where we meet at 4 o'clock every afternoon. Well, not every afternoon, every once in a while, but he plays almost every day, and I think he gets a lot of inspiration for his music scores. When he walks the golf course, and he's not the greatest golfer in the world, but he certainly enjoys these walks and, being amongst the trees, and I think it gives him inspiration for, writing so many of the famous scores he's done, like Schindler's List and E.T. and,
Star Wars.
Star Wars, the list goes on and on. There's lots of interesting things. Annika Sörenstam, arguably, the greatest women's golfer of a generation, I found kind of interesting when I asked her, if she could go out and play in a foursome with 3 other people, and they didn't have to be golfers, who would they be? And it was kind of, I won't spoil it for the reader, but it just says a lot about her. Her choices.
Who was one of the 3, though? I'm sorry, Amy. Who was one of the 3 people that she would pick? You can tell us that much.
Princess Di. I thought that was interesting. But, I wouldn't ruin it if I told you, but I think it's indicative of somebody, how they feel at the very height of a career, having the public expectation the way they do. And it also divulges a lot about her and what she wants in her life, I mean, if you want me to tell you, I'll tell you. But I think it's kind of a very interesting insight.
No, I was going to say, I think giving one of the 3 is good. I hate to give anything away. It's not, this isn't fiction, but I still, I want to help you sell books, too.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah. No, listen, I write books. I know that you got to leave a little something, just out of reach for people.
Yeah.
Who did you know best before you started the interviews? Who in the group of 27, well, the 37, I guess, that you did the interviews with, who did you know best? And by the same token, who did you know least when you started?
Well, that's an interesting question to ask, because I think one of the things that inspired me to write this book is, as much as people might have been acquaintances or I knew them, I didn't know them, because I felt that one of the things that inspired me is there was a big part of my personality that over the years knew people but just didn't have the time for them. And I think that was because living life on the road. I don't think sometimes being a professional athlete, you really can have close, intimate friendships with people and really maintain them the way you want. So I think one of the inspirations for the book was to be able to sit down in somebody's office that maybe I knew or talked with on the phone or known over the years, and just kind of get to know them a little better. In the case of Sandy Weil, the former CEO of Citigroup, or Dennis Quaid, who I see out at my club all the time, or Tom Warner, who's also in the book, one of the owners of the Red Sox. These are all people that maybe I just wanted to know a little bit more about the wealth and breadth of them. So that's kind of how I felt.
Who surprised you the most in the interview? Told you something that really surprised you?
Let's see. Well, I think Tom Werner, because he was a writer originally. He was a comedy writer, a writer for television. Before with Carsey Warner, Carsey Warner was a producer of so many great TV shows, The Cosby Shows and whatever. But
Roseanne.
to listen to him, what surprised me is his childhood and his interest in baseball as a child, and his father. And he views sports kind of very philosophically, like a writer. Both baseball and golf. And I think that was kind of to sit and talk to him about the game and how he views them both as very poetic. I think I learned a lot about why I've maybe, without even verbalizing it, have played golf my whole life, just to listen to somebody who plays it socially, how he views sports in general. So I thought that was a really good interview.
Oh, interesting.
One of the owners of the Reds.
Did any? Well, you sort of answered this, but I was going to ask you if the interviews made you want to know any of these people even better. I mean, that you thought, okay, now that I've done the interview, I got to schedule more time with this person. I got to come back and have lunch because I feel like I've barely, touch the surface of who this person is. Yeah,
I kind of felt that way about Pam Shriver, the tennis pro, the great doubles tennis pro, and part of the well-known Shriver family. I think Pam has kind of been an interesting person. She's been a professional athlete and a commentator. She's a wife and mother. She does her own charity work. And she kind of leaves you wanting to know more about her and, her love of golf and what it's kind of, golf has been interesting in her life in that, it's like a lot of athletes. Once you're good at something, she was great at a sport that was reactionary with the ball coming at you. So I think she wanted to see if she could take on a sport that was stationary, so to speak. And, it's just a ball laying there, and you have no excuses. The way you do in tennis, well, it had side spin, or it was a little too high, or whatever. She was very interesting. And I think Lorena Ochoa, probably the number one women's golfer now, I found her quite interesting too, because she's using golf so much in her country to to help others through her foundation. Ben Crenshaw is I think was a wonderful interview. As former Masters champion and great professional golfer. How he views golf is very interesting from a historical standpoint. He loves the sport and the history of the game. So everybody was just kind of interesting, how they kind of came in touch with the game and what's inspired them about it.
It seems, and you really you said this while we've been talking. You say this in the book that golf gave you entree into so many worlds beyond sport. Did you ever, even before you started your career, or even during the early days of your career, did you ever think you'd be making conversation with and friends of movie stars and world leaders and pro athletes? Is that something you ever pictured for yourself in the early days?
Yeah, because I grew up in Los Angeles, and I can remember as a child, sneaking under the fence at Riviera Country Club because we weren't members of any club. And I'd sneak, and late in the afternoon, I'd putt on the putting green with Rita Hayworth or Burt Lancaster or Jim Backus, the voice of Mr. Magoo. I think growing up in Los Angeles, the celebrity side of it was not unusual for me. But I think that the beauty of my life has been, they may be cliches, but how I've met I never have put any bars on what's possible, or what and I think that's a thing, is that I don't like necessarily predictability or about things. You never know what's going to come your way in life. I didn't know I was going to do this book. I didn't know I was going to do an instruction book that I did years ago. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of life, is you never know what's going to come your way, but you have to keep yourself open to the possibilities. And like the people in this book, I don't know if they, they can really tell you what golf has meant to them. In some cases, and some of the people interviewed, it's been a thing of self-expression. For other people, it's been a way to meet people. For other people, it's been a solace away from their everyday life and pressures. They play the game, and for other people, it's golf is an addiction that replaced another addiction. So I feel like I just learned a lot about humankind, because in actuality, golf is a microcosm of life anyway, and that's one thing. It's a metaphor for life. That's I think the point I was making when we first started talking, that when birdies and bogeys are part of everyday life, the good and bad that we all have to deal with, and it's just how you deal with it.
Well, I want to change gears a little bit on you and give you the chance to tell the world how much tougher interviewing celebrities is than playing a round of golf. And you can just start anytime you like.
Well, the hardest thing was to get the tape recorder to work, and trying to get a tape deck, a sound quality interview, so it could possibly be used. I mean, I just thought I would sit down and take some notes or use a simple tape recorder, and then I decided, well, no, I need to bring in my friend Don Wade, who Don was a former senior editor at Golf Digest magazine, and I thought, I'm going to need a little bit of help taping these interviews and doing some of the stuff, because Don knows all about this stuff. I mean, I could ask the questions. Amy Alcott can provide the entree and get on the phone and get in the door to some people, but the whole process and how long the book took to do was mind-boggling. So, it's a lot of work. I can't say I'm lined up to do book number 2, but I wouldn't put it past. That's for sure.
Well, I definitely feel your pain.
Yeah. Well, how many books have you written, Bob?
How many books have I written?
Yeah.
9 that have been published, and there's a few more in the pipeline.
Wow.
So, yeah, I feel your pain. And it's funny. I suspected that when I asked you that question, that you were going to reference tape recorders and sound quality, because I think anyone who's tried to do this has run up against that as being the number one pain in the butt.
Yeah, that's not an easy thing. And to try to get an interview and whatever. I mean, I went all over. I was in Bill Clinton's office in Harlem. I was in Sandy Weil's office in New York. I was in a media tent with Annika Sörenstam. I was in a clubhouse with Lorena Ochoa. I was in a bar with Rex Pickett, who wrote the book movie Sideways. In all different kinds of places doing these interviews over a 2-year period, and that was challenging in itself, trying to get good sound quality.
And Amy, did you do a lot of preparation for the interviews?
Yes and no. There were some people that I had some, I knew a little bit more about, or like Ben Crenshaw, as I said earlier, who had that magical victory for any golfer who watched him win the Masters a few years back, right after his teacher, Harvey Penick, who was a legendary golf teacher of so many great golfers, he had just died. And the reason I wanted to do Ben Crenshaw was part of there was a whole spirituality about Ben Crenshaw that kind of fell in line with my life. I had a teacher who was older that died in his 90s, who was my only teacher, who was, knew my game backwards and forwards. I also, I also won a huge golf tournament, 6 months after my own mother had died, and I say in the book, as I wanted to know, these are these things that were a connection with Ben Crenshaw and I, and that's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to interview him. Was there was a whole spiritual connection to the game with two of our greatest wins and our greatest losses in our life. So I think that there was some special synergy to the whole thing.
I would suspect that the two people that you interviewed that other people are most curious about would probably be Bill Clinton and Jack Nicholson. And I wondered if you could tell us something about each of them that maybe didn't make the book, or just your impressions of them.
Well, Bill Clinton, to me, is a brilliant man. I got the pleasure of playing with him 3 times, twice while he was in office and 1 time when he wasn't. I consider him a friend. It's hard kind of not to be his friend. He's very engaging. I enjoyed, and both Don Wade and I enjoyed the tour of his office in Harlem. It was a real treat to go there and to interview him. We really only had a half hour, and we ended up having an hour and a half. He had to be down at the United Nations. He showed us all this wonderful memorabilia from Abraham Lincoln that he has in his office. And,
you said he had a lot of political buttons and
pins and all. Yes, all kinds of stuff. And but once you got him talking about golf, that was it. I mean, it was like a break in his day, a total respite, away from the pressures of whatever other things that were going on. I think his wife was considering running for the presidency the time that we interviewed him. And so, there was a lot going on, and just to sit in his office like that, and, he says, girl, you just go do it, I didn't know, it's like he didn't know where his autobiography, My Life, would end up, how that would all be put together. But it turned out to be a bestseller. And although this book is not about me, it was kind of inspiring to do that. And he talked about golf in Scotland and some of the rounds we'd played together and some of the laughs that we'd had, and some of the movies we liked to watch. And anyway, he was, he's just an amazingly brilliant man. Jack Nicholson, I've played golf with a couple times in Los Angeles, and Jack's a great guy. He knows so much about so many sports, but he'll say, now, on the first tee, if you want to gamble with him, he'll say, I'll gamble with you for anything you want, except I'm not going to pay if I lose. So he's not much of a gambler, but he's wonderful to be in the company of, because, he's another person. He's very intelligent, and I just love his mind. He and Bill Clinton are very similar in that way. I always gravitate to people with great minds. I think I guess this book could be called Great Minds from my interest's sake. So that was interesting. He likes to hit golf balls off of his patio down into a canyon. So we had a nice chat about that. He's just into all sports.
The last thing, almost the penultimate thing that you asked him about was what his favorite golf film was, and I love the choice that he gave you.
I'm sitting here thinking when it was a Fred Astaire movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Carefree with Fred Astaire.
Carefree. Yeah. Well, you can only imagine Jack Nicholson with his great ability to be all these different personalities and characters would understand a wide array of great, he's a raconteur of all kinds of things. So that didn't surprise me that, that I think the reason he came up with that is I was telling him, Jack, the golf swing's just like a dance step. I think I remember saying that to him. And so maybe that's why he came up with that movie.
Now, I guess, I have no choice here, but I guess we have to talk a little bit about golf. We've kind of talked around it. So kind of what I'm wondering is, what do young female golfers have the hardest time with in terms of learning the professional game these days?
Well, I think, it's hard to differentiate between women and men, a young pro on the tour. It's very competitive. It always has been competitive, and that's what you sign up for. And the difficulty now is the golf has really become an international sport. First, it was an influx of players from Japan, and then Sweden, and now Korea. Well, over 45 players, 50 players on the tour from Korea. So they're a big threat. And the thing that concerns me the most is, during my big generation of great players, the Nancy Lopez, Amy Alcott, my generation of players, Beth Daniel, the list goes on, it was American players. And I think the Korean players are posing a big threat, and the American players really have to bone up, so to speak, on all aspects of their game, because that concerns me a lot, is what's happened to the great American female golfer.
Well, it's interesting. It was a different response than I was expecting, frankly. I suspected what you were going to say was that the young women, and I think it's the young men are the same way, but, asking you about the women, I expected the answer would be something about impatience and the expectation that they deserve maybe acclaim and rewards that they haven't yet earned. It seems like it's an entitlement generation.
Oh, yeah, no question. Well, I would put that up there, but, a lot of that's a media issue and a media problem, because we're so starved for heroes and heroines that the media is very quick to call people superstars if they win one tournament. Everybody was waiting for Michelle Wie to win a golf tournament. I mean, that doesn't prove anything about Michelle Wie if she wins one golf tournament. They were finally waiting for her, to win. And, that hasn't happened yet, but it's, whether she does or she doesn't, it's not going to prove anything that we don't, that it's not going to even prove she's a great player. It's going to prove that she's capable of winning. But greatness is something that's proven over a long period of time. It has to do a lot with consistency, and especially in the sport of golf. It's longevity and consistency. I mean, if you talk about someone like Kathy Whitworth, who's the winningest golfer of all time, 87 victories in her career, won more than any man, Ben Hogan, Byron Nelson, or whatever. It's all about, that's what it's been all about. It was even though she's, probably close to late 60s or 70s now, I mean, just picking her out of, that's something that any great young player should aspire to, is a career that's kind of spanned a lifetime.
Well, let's kind of wrap up where we started. I'm gonna bite the bullet on this and ask you to explain to me, a complete non-golfer, the difference between a bogey and a birdie. What is it?
Well, a bogey and a birdie. You really don't know this, Bob.
I swear to you, my new friend, I have no idea.
Do you know what par is?
Yeah, I think par. Let me see if I do. Par is when you shoot the number of holes, the number of shots for the entire course that is pre-selected for each hole.
Well, no. Each hole you play has a par. On any golf course, there's a variety of par 4 holes. Those holes sometimes usually go between like 300, let's say 300, I'm just going to do this simply, 300 to 420 yards. And a par 5 is a hole that goes from like 480 yards to 600 yards. And a par 3 is like a hole under 200 yards. So every hole has a par. So when you make a birdie, you've done something really good. That means like on a par 3 hole, a short hole, you've gotten on the green with one shot and made the putt. And a bogey is one more than par. So a bogey is not good. A birdie is good.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really frightening.
You sound really inspired by that, Bob.
No. Listen, it's conversationally, when you're out with people and you don't know that stuff, it's not good, and you don't want to reach my age and acknowledge that you don't know. But I honestly did not know. So,
you know what an eagle is?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, an eagle is even better than a birdie. That's like if you have a hole-in-one on a par 3 hole, that would be an eagle. But it'd also still be a hole-in-one because you hit the shot up and it went in the hole on the first swing. So it's not only a hole-in-one, it's also an eagle. So an eagle is two under par, and a birdie is 1 under par, and a bogey is 1 over par, and a double bogey is 2 over par. So the bogey.
Now my head is swimming, Amy. Thank you. You think I'm the last guy in America who does not know this?
No, but you. The
last guy willing to admit it?
No. That's you're just being honest. There's no big sin about it. No big deal. Maybe you'll just never play golf, and that's good. You'll have be a lot less frustrated.
So you know what? Let me ask you one more thing. Now that we've gotten into this, and I know that obviously you played forever. You know this because of that, but you also design courses, right? Are you still doing that?
Yes. My career is in transition now. So not only trying to become an author, but the thing I love the most is design. Is creating beautiful golf courses. I've always made notes of great golf courses or particular golf holes that I played and made notes about them. So that's something I'm trying to get more and more involved of, and be an advocate for more women golf designers. I mean, I think that the guys that are out there do fabulous work. Jack Nicklaus, Greg Norman, Tom Doak, Tom Fazio. You can go down the list of really great, good designers. But I think there's a lot of room out there on the fairways of life for some really great women golf designers, and I hope to be able to add to that. It's just kind of taking on a new aspect of my career. So I do that. I do golf outings now for companies and play golf with customers of companies and stuff. People, I didn't do as much of that while I was on the tour full time, but I love doing that because I love people. Like, that's the whole thing about why I probably wrote the book, is because I enjoy getting to know people.
I think that comes across in the book. I think and certainly talking to you this evening, I think that's been quite clear. Well, let me get in a plug for your book. You've been a great guest. You can order Amy Alcott's book, Leaderboard: Conversations on Golf and Life, at great bookstores everywhere, or online at Amazon.com or MrMedia.com. And check out her personal website. It's www.amyalcott.com. That's AMYALCOTT.com. That's for more information. And Amy, thanks so much for joining us on Mr. Media today. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
Bob, thank you. You're a great interviewer, and I hope to come back again. And don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up about not being a golfer.
Nah, I don't, believe me. I admire it in other people, but it's not one of the things I was cut out for.
Well, thank you for the plug. I certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on, and best of luck to you with the book.
Thank you, Bob. Good luck to your daughter. May she find all her dreams out there. I think women's sports are great for young girls.
Thank you. I will pass that on to her in the morning.
Okay.
And
Thank
talk
you.
to you soon.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And folks, for more sports-related interviews, you can surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. It's where you can listen to my earlier conversations with Brandy Chastain, Carrie Strug, Bill Romanowski, and many more. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, MySpace, Pointer Online, Friendster, Orkut, Bebo, High Five, Tag, Multiply, Zanga, Yahoo, NetVibes. It's a long list. Bear with me. Digital Journal, Podcast Pickle, Vox, Folio, Mediafly, Podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, or Odeo. And subscribe to Mr. Media on iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Just search Mr. Media Interviews from within iTunes and subscribe for free. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. That's ANDELMAN. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Twitter, www.twitter.com/Andelman. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate when you give a piece of your day to spend it with us.